Sunday. And at least per Kimpom, it looks like we have a tip-off time already.
8:40,
8:40
8:40
p.m.
p.m. Yep.
8:40 p.m. Let's go. In Cleveland, Ohio, we get 2 seed Michigan State, 10 seed New Mexico. New Mexico is coming off a very gritty win against Marquette, where they were down by 3 with 6 minutes to go after a big David Joplin shot. Really turned up the defensive pressure, forced Marquette to play their game, got them to take a ton of tough shots, made clutch free throws down the stretch from Donovan Dent, slammed the door shut. Michigan State, on the other hand, shook off a slow start against Bryant, ended up rolling to a 25-point win. Cart, what do you think determines this matchup for your Spartans?
I mean, look, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like a lot of Michigan State games do come down to wearing down on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that you make things tough on them. And the one thing I feel good about with Michigan State, I'm not necessarily saying they're a team that's made up to shut down guards or anything like that, but as a guard playing against Michigan State, there's so many different guys that can get thrown at you that are can be fresh at any time. Like you can get Fears on you, you can get Jay Naked, you can get Trey
Mm-hmm.
Holloman, and you know what? I'm not stupid. Donovan Dent is one of the best guards in the country. Like he's an All American in my book. I don't like with all due respect to Zakai Ziegler, man. Hell no, I'm picking Donovan Dent. Like that is what it is. That dude is really really good. I think he's going to be a pro one day. He does a lot of things for himself and others. He's the type of guy that can have a very very special game. Um, but you gotta have the wherewithal, the mental makeup, and the team togetherness to take down this Michigan State team. And I'm not saying New Mexico is not talented. I think they have guys, but I do think that Michigan State could use, the way they play basketball to kind of wear down this New Mexico team, even though they are a team that, they're not as big as Bryant, but you look at like Ken Palm average height, this is a big team. They got some
Mm-hmm.
length.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, with New Mexico, they're not a one-person team. I don't want to disrespect True Washington, Mustafa Amzil, Nelly Jr. Joseph. All those guys have had really nice starts to their tournaments as well. Dent is the head of the snake, though. He is everything to this team in terms of just usage, shot creation, facilitating for teammates. And I think the optimistic side for Michigan State, they have found a way to like neutralize big name guards as much as you can, particularly over their winning streak. Well, even going back before the winning streak, what's that famous line? Something about went out west and got embarrassed. At least you fouled out Kasparis. Yeah, you found a way to foul out Kasparis that one time. Even that the win against Purdue, uh, Braden Smith had 6 turnovers in that one. Jacoby Gillespie went 0 from beyond 0 from beyond the arc, and the win against Maryland. Like you're never going to completely shut out a guard as good as Donovan Dent, much like you couldn't completely shut out Braden or Jacoby Gillespie. But I just trust Izzo, especially I trust him way more than Richard Pitino on a 2 day turnaround to like game prep this one to figure out some sort of weakness in Donovan Dent that you can exploit. And I know Michigan State hasn't forced a ton of turnovers this year. Dent just gave it up 8 times against Marquette. And granted, it's Marquette. That's kind of their MO. They take care of the ball and they turn you over. But I think there might be something there that Izzo could maybe poke at and find a way to ramp up the pressure on him to see if he could create a little something.
Yeah, I definitely think that'll be putting pressure on him, making it tough on him is definitely the key. And I spoke a lot about him because I think, like you said, he is the head of the stake. But this isn't a one-man team. I've been very impressed with the Lobos throughout the season. One, I think they're very well coached. I really respect Pitino. I respect him all the way back to his times at Minnesota. I still don't even understand why they got rid of him, to be honest with you. But I'm glad
Hmm.
that he left Minnesota because he managed to actually put good Minnesota teams together with like Marcus Carr and likes of those guys there. But the length and the athleticism can bother a lot of teams, right? And you usually don't see that from teams in the Mountain West, right? Like not to disrespect that conference, but sometimes you don't see the length and the athletes that you see in other places. This New Mexico team has that. They have Nelly Joseph Jr. down low, and he's a guy that can affect shots. I mean, this team is top 15 in the country in block percentage. They're very good at defense from 2 point range. They are a team that can make things tough on you at the hoop. And, uh, I think it's going to be imperative for Michigan State to make some threes in this game. I mean, they're still
Hmm.
316th in the country from 3 point range. But like I stated, this is a team that's shooting around 34%, 35%. these last 10 games. And that makes all the difference. And I think they are going to have to, you know, as much as they're putting pressure on the defensive end, I think they're going to be able to score enough points. They are going to have to knock down some threes in this game. And, you know, that Bryant game should make you feel good about the fact that they can knock it down at a respectable clip.
I agree with you on that as well. And even like just some of the style that New Mexico plays, they like to get up and down the court and push tempo. And I kind of think that plays into Michigan State's favor. I know Dent is just an absolute menace in the open court, really good at getting to the basket, really good at drawing fouls to where, you definitely don't want to overlook that. You got to have guys ready to stop the ball and, execute your transition D as well. But I just think about like the amount of cerebral ball players that Michigan State has who can handle, who can run the break. I think it sets up very nicely for them, and they have their own weapon in Cohen Carr, who's coming off of an 18-point performance against Bryant, who's like, it wouldn't be surprising at all to see them uh, kind of find him streaking down the sideline for a highlight reel slam that makes its rounds on Twitter, and maybe Michigan State fans start their beef with Kevin Sweeney again, something like things of that nature. But um, yeah, there's like you said, nothing you want to overlook, but kind of off of that, I do think the matchup shapes up well for Michigan State. But if there was anything about the Lobos that particularly scares you, like even outside of Donovan Dent, is there one thing as you look up and down the roster, look at their strengths and weaknesses and think, oh, if this clicks for them, this could spell trouble for us?
I do think that they do have size. I think it's Amzil, correct? I don't want to mispronounce it. I believe it's
Either Amsel or Amsel. Let's go
Amzil or
Amsel.
Amzil. He's the guy who has shown the ability to stretch the floor.
Hmm.
I sometimes don't like our front court when it's drawn out like that. It is something that could possibly hurt them. But I do actually, and this is not like a irrational confidence, like we're about to just beat New Mexico, but I can truly say like the matchup doesn't necessarily just like strike fear in me necessarily like what goes against Michigan State. At least as of late. But usually post presence are what really scares me, and they do have a
Yeah.
post present. Like Joseph Jr. definitely does make me worry a bit. But I think that Michigan State has done a great job lately of recognizing that at a certain point you got to shift and you can't let those guys go one on one,
Hmm.
and you got to double off that team. And um, one weakness of New Mexico is that they do get a lot in transition. Like they want to go fast, they want to score really quickly because the half court isn't the greatest. Like, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? They're not that great from 3-point range. They're solid. They're middle of the pack in the country. They're middle of the pack from 2-point range. Actually, they're not even middle of the pack. 200s from 2-point range. So nothing crazy, but some other talking points just want to bring up. Sometimes I like to look at like similar opponents, I guess. Now, we're talking November opponents. I think
Hmm.
this is now March. Teams are totally different. Michigan State's different than they were back then. Um, St. John's is always a team that gets compared to Michigan State. This team played St. John's earlier in the year. They lost by 14 in that game. They also played UCLA, who I think is another team that's a little bit similar um, to Michigan State, and they won that game. So they've shown the ability to play with those guys. They've shown the ability to beat those opponents. They beat USC earlier this year, who Michigan State lost to. So this is a really good New Mexico team. I thought that I was very impressed by their first round win over Marquette too, by the way. Like
Hmm.
I thought that Marquette could do some things in that game, and they showed some resiliency in that one. When it got to like the Cam Jones zone, they're the ones that made the play. Donovan Densel
Yeah.
made the play. So
Yeah. Yeah.
feel good about
Yeah.
that.
Other than like, yeah, you kind of hit on the obvious with Nelly Jr. Joseph, but even the way that Michigan State's found methods to sort of counteract those big post presences, even with someone like True Washington, who I think is has some of the most active hands in the country. CJ Nolan, I mean, he's a decent at applying pressure as well. I just don't see that bothering Michigan State as much with how many options they have. Like if Fears is turning it over, we'll go down to Jace Richardson. If Jace Richardson's turning it over, we'll go to Trey Holloman. Like you can go on down the line to where none of those guards should have to do too much or be pressing to like they could avoid those types of situations. But at the same time, you also have the identity that's like when the game is on the line, it goes in Jace's hands. And
Yeah.
so it's nice to have that like everybody knows their role where it's like that's our lead guard and our playmaker in crunch time. But if he's having to deal with True or if he's having to deal with like relentless ball pressure, there are other guys who can handle and create and free him up to like get free off ball, relocate for a three and knock it down. Because one thing I love about Jace is like you said he started slow against Bryant. He makes timely shots. Like that to me is I envision this game shaping out. We can get into score predictions in a second. Um, 'Cause Kim Palm, they currently have Michigan State winning by 8, 77-69. I kind of lean Michigan State ultimately winning by double figures. For some reason, I can't completely shake New Mexico getting packed up in just a dominant fashion by Clemson last year out of my head and kind of fearing that that's what's on the horizon, even though it's a different team and they're definitely better than last year. But yeah, I think Michigan State can pull this one out by double digits, but it feels like the way that it could unfold is very similarly to the Bryant game where, maybe they're going back and forth and there's around the 15, 14, 13-minute mark in the second half, Michigan State's in the middle of a run where like a 3-point lead becomes a 5-point lead. Then all of a sudden Jace gets free for a three, 8-point lead stretches out to double digits quickly and they don't look back.
Yeah, I can see that same thing happening. And I think I'll go 75, 70. I'll go 75. Let's go 77. I'm sorry, 75, 67.
Okay. Yeah. So
And I think that's what I'll go with. And lastly, I do think you pointed this out. It is going to be key that Michigan State's guards do take care of the basketball. So Fears is going to be really important because, like we said, this is a team that wants to get out and run. And if you're going to have these live ball turnovers, then we're going to, I think you get the guys out and running. That's not where we really want to be. But, whatever the result may be, I think we're in for a really good game. I think people doubted New Mexico against Marquette, and they showed up, and they'll have that chip and underdog on their shoulder in this one with a coach that is very familiar with Michigan State. So it'll be a very interesting game to see. We will have the recap up on this channel as well as all the previews and recaps for every March Madness game here on Sleepers Media YouTube channel. It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.